a modest apartment in Campsie, Sydney. Behind closed doors, a nightmare unfolded. For years, a young woman was watched, filmed, and preyed upon in the place she was supposed to feel safe. Then, on a Thursday in April, everything changed. She was bound, gagged, attacked, and on Sunday morning, her naked body was thrown from a cliff into the dark waters of Snapper Point, a place she had once photographed with joy, never knowing it would become her grave. What happens when the person you trust to protect you becomes your worst nightmare? What if your family's sanctuary becomes a chamber of horrors? What if a simple act of coming home from shopping on a Thursday afternoon becomes the last journey you ever take? This is the dark truth. We don't just tell stories, we unravel them, we expose them, we demand justice for those whose voices have been silenced. Michelle Leng. Born in Chengdu, China, Michelle was the only child of Mei Zhang, a bond so deep, so pure, that it defined both their lives. When Michelle expressed her dream of studying abroad, her mother didn't hesitate. She sacrificed. She arranged for Michelle to move to Sydney in 2011 to pursue a business degree at the University of Technology, Sydney, one of Australia's most prestigious institutions. She was living the dream her mother had sacrificed everything for. To make sure Michelle felt safe and supported, her aunt and uncle offered her a room in their Campsie apartment. It seemed like a gift from heaven. Family, support, a safe haven in a foreign land. Her uncle, Derek Barrett, was her family. He was supposed to protect her. He was supposed to be trustworthy. He was anything but. What Michelle didn't know was that behind the walls of that apartment, a predator was at work. Derek Barrett was 27 years old, the husband of Michelle's aunt. On the surface, he seemed ordinary. A former IT worker, married, living a normal life. But for years, he harbored a dark obsession with his young niece. It started with watching. Then came the cameras, hidden, strategic, placed in her room, in the bathroom, everywhere. Everywhere she thought she was safe, she was being filmed. Derek would sneak into her room while she slept, camera in hand, capturing images of her vulnerability. He photographed her changing clothes. He recorded her showering. He invaded every private moment of her existence. But Derek's sick fantasies weren't satisfied with voyeurism alone. By the time 2016 arrived, Derek had evolved into something far more sinister. The hidden cameras weren't enough. The photographs weren't enough. The years of obsessive stalking weren't enough. He wanted her, not as a niece, not as family, as a victim, as his prey. It started like any other day. Michelle woke up. She went to her classes at the University of Technology, Sydney, doing what she loved, living the dream her mother had given her. That afternoon, she said goodbye to friends at a bus stop. She went shopping at Pitt Street Mall, one of Sydney's busiest shopping centers. She bought things, normal things. She grabbed a juice for her train ride home. There's CCTV footage of her there, walking through the mall in a gray long-sleeved top and black pants, her shopping bags in hand. She looks peaceful. She looks alive. That was her last known moment of freedom. She arrived at the apartment. Derek was home. Her aunt was away on a business trip. Her cousin wasn't there. It was just Michelle and her uncle in that apartment. What happened in those next moments, only Derek knows. What we know from court documents is that Michelle was ambushed. She was bound with duct tape. A white cloth was forced into her mouth, and then Derek started filming. But Derek wasn't done. For approximately 3 days, from Thursday, April 21st at 4:45 p.m. to Sunday, April 24th at 10:30 a.m., Michelle was held captive in that apartment. Police don't know exactly how long she survived her injuries, but they know one thing. In those final hours, Derek Barrett turned his sexual assault into murder. He stabbed her, not once, not twice. According to court documents, Derek stabbed Michelle Leng more than 20 or 30 times. On the morning of April 24th, Sunday, Derek wrapped Michelle's body in plastic and he prepared to dispose of her like garbage. He drove north toward the coast. His phone data tracked him every mile of the journey. At 3:19 a.m., he arrived at Snapper Point, a beautiful coastal area in the Moonmora State Conservation Area. He stopped at a gas station along the way to buy drinks and fill the car with gasoline, a simple stop. When he reached Snapper Point, Derek Barrett walked to the blowhole, a natural opening in the coastal rock where water crashes and surges. He looked at the water below, and he threw Michelle's body over the cliff. The same blowhole where Michelle had taken a joyful photograph just years before, a memory she'd shared on Instagram, a moment of happiness captured forever. Now it was her tomb. At 9 a.m., tourists discovered her floating face down in the water. For 3 days, Michelle Leng was Jane Doe. Her body, recovered from Snapper Point, no identification. Police had a body, but no answers. Who was she? Where did she come from? What had happened to her? Her aunt reported her missing on Monday, April 25th, 4 days after she'd last been seen alive at Campsie Station. On Friday, April 29, 2016, Michelle Leng's body was formally identified through DNA testing. The nightmare was no longer a mystery. It was a confirmed tragedy. Michelle Leng's mother, Mei Zhang, received the call that shattered her world. Detectives from the homicide squad descended on the case. CCTV footage was analyzed. Her movements on April 21st were reconstructed. And then, on Friday, April 29th, just 4 days after Michelle's body was discovered, police arrested Derek Barrett at his home. He was 27 years old. He was her uncle. He was charged with murder. But that wasn't all. As the investigation deepened, as forensic evidence was gathered, as police began to understand the full scope of his crimes, additional charges were filed. Unlawful imprisonment, secret videotaping, taking images or videos for sexual gratification, and later, sexual assault itself. On December 14th, 2017, almost 2 years after Michelle's death, Derek Barrett appeared in court to learn his fate. Justice Helen Wilson presided over his sentencing. She heard evidence of his crimes. Derek sat with his head bowed throughout the sentencing. He showed little emotion. He showed little remorse. Justice Wilson sentenced him to 46 years in prison, but it came with a minimum non-parole period of 34.5 years. Derek Barrett would not become eligible for release until 2050. Michelle's mother had begged for a life sentence. The judge did not grant it. For Michelle's family, it felt like an injustice layered upon an already incomprehensible tragedy. In 2019, nearly 3 years after Derek Barrett's initial sentencing, a USB stick was discovered by a member of the public in Strathfield, Sydney. It contained files, videos, and crucial evidence that had never been presented at trial. Despite Barrett's conviction, the discovery of these videos, the filing of additional charges, and the imposition of a 66-year sentence, lingering questions remain. Michelle's case reminds us that safety is not guaranteed, that trust can be weaponized, that family bonds, which should be our greatest source of security, can become our greatest vulnerability. Michelle Leng was 25 years old. She had her entire life ahead of her. She had dreams. She had potential. She had a mother who loved her with the kind of devotion that only a parent can give. Derek Barrett took all of that away. If you're watching this and you're an international student, if you're far from home, if you're uncertain about your safety, if something feels wrong in your living situation, please speak up. Tell someone. Call the police. Contact your university's support services. Do not suffer in silence. And if you know something about another case, about another predator, about another victim, please come forward. Justice begins with witnesses. Justice begins with people who refuse to let silence protect the guilty. This is the dark truth, and we are committed to telling the stories that matter. Stories like Michelle's. Stories that demand justice. Stories that demand change. Subscribe for more in-depth explorations of cases that have shaped our world. Like this video. Michelle Leng's case is one we will never forget, not because of the brutality of her death, but because of the brightness of her life. She deserved better. She deserved justice. She deserved to come home. And now she will be remembered forever.